Okay, no, we're on. Okay, good. We're on.
And
Good.
13, I think the 13 gallons
Thought we
of
had
the
that.
garbage cans over there.
Hello,
Because
everyone.
we can
Welcome
get
to the
it
Love
back.
Community Wednesday night Bible study. We are going to continue our study. We are studying um, Galatians, the fifth chapter right now. We're going through the um, the works of the flesh, the deeds of the body, and the responsibility or the obligation, as Paul puts it, to be a debtor to mortify the deeds of the body or the works of the flesh. Now, last week uh, we went over, was it fornication?
Yeah,
Yeah, we went over
adultery,
fornication.
fornication.
Some Bibles say sexual immorality. Some Bibles say adultery. Those terms are interchangeable. However, the actual word for it in the Greek is porneia, and it is rendered sexual immorality. And the connotation for porneia is having multiple sexual partners. Okay, and that's pretty much good evening. That is pretty much where we'll leave that one. Okay, we went in depth in it a little bit. Now the next one, akatharsia, is some people's Bibles say impurity. Some people's Bibles say fornication. Right? What is the second one? What second one do you have? You have fornication. Okay. Anybody have something different? I have impurity and I have fornication in one. I think we're going to just go ahead and group these first three kind of together. We'll show their distinction, but I think most people get the general idea. Anybody have something different from impurity? Basically, that word aka and tharsia means not pure. And so, one of the deeds of the body or the works of the flesh is to act in a manner that is not pure, not pure. And um, in this particular rendering of it, it's kind of uh, it's kind of the idea of impure, um, like it was used in a manner where if there was a law that if you touched a dead body, then you were considered impure or unclean. Okay, and you had to go and wash and do all the rituals so that you can be sociable again. So this idea of impurity, which is a work of the flesh, a deed of the body, is a it's an act that causes you to be uh, it's a sexual connotation that causes you to be unsociable, if that's a way to put it, that you are impure, uh, and that impurity, some people uh, they conduct themselves in such a frivolous way that that impurity um, catches and spreads. That's how we get STDs. For the most part, I'm not. I'm just generalizing. I don't want anybody to text me and say no, that's not what happened, because a lot of times it doesn't happen. But that is the idea here in the Bible that causes leprosy. You know how people catch leprosy, and one of the more modern day issues that we have in our society are these sexually transmitted diseases. And unfortunately, some people catch them innocently, and just the other person is has been involved, or that person, that the last person they were with, were involved. You never know. But somebody along the way was intentionally impure. Okay, and that caused this whole idea of being impure. So that is that word. That is a deed of the body. That is a work of the flesh. Some people's translation is called uncleanness. Uncleanness. Impurity, uncleanness, as it relates to porneia. Because now these three are relatable. They're different words, but they're interchangeable and they're relatable. Because a person most likely that's involved with porneia has the tendency now to be akathartos, which means unclean. Okay, does that make sense?
Mine says indecency.
Indecency, I like that. Indecency. That's a more a word that people can relate to. Indecency, impure, uncleanness, physically or morally. Now, that was one that when I looked at the concordance, it said physically or morally. How can you be morally, your morals be considered unclean? Your morals be considered impure, or your morals be considered indecent? Your moral code, how you act, yes, yeah, and how you think, yes.
Moral corruption.
What does that look like, Misty? What does moral corruption look like?
Not having, not having morals means that you don't care what you do to somebody else. It's more self-centeredness. Self-centeredness. You do what pleases you.
Yeah.
And you want.
Well, that is the foundation of the work of the flesh. It's self-centeredness. All of this springs from being self-centered and caring for self and only self, and what self wants to do. And so, but to be unclean morally, I like that, is immoral thoughts, immoral behavior, having no concern or regard for your fellow man. And some people are that way in thought and in word. Maybe not so much in deed, because it exposes the heart. But they have immoral thoughts. They say immoral things. Things that have no regard for the fellow man. Thoughts that disregard another human being. And in this case, in these cases, in these three, it's more of a sexual connotation. Okay, can we move on to the next one? Yeah, please. Let's move on. Okay, so now the next one then. Hold on just a moment. Let me get back to where I was. The next one, this one here, the third one is I have sensuality or lasciviousness. Anybody have something different? Licentiousness, lasciviousness, sensuality. Any other reading rendering of that word? About wantonness. Anybody have wantonness? You have who? Lustful pleasures. What version are you reading from, Elsie? The NLT, the New Living Translation. Okay. Lustful pleasures, licentiousness, lasciviousness, wantonness. Those are all synonymous terms for this particular work of the flesh. And it's a conduct basically that's shocking to public decency.
Well, would it be a total irresponsibility and lack of self-control?
Yes.
Amplified version, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Now, to give you an example of that, there was a very popular expression of licentiousness in the 70s. Anybody know what that was?
I'm not quite sure.
Hmm?
It feels good to do it, or love the one you're with. I don't know.
Well, that was that wasn't the one I was thinking of. But yeah, that was you can't be with the one you love the one you with. Yeah, no, that's that gets you in trouble. It's your thing.
Oh, okay.
But the one I'm thinking of was very common in the 70s, and most of the time you saw this at sports events. Yes. I believe it was the 70s. Yeah, it was the 70s. It was called streaking.
Oh, my goodness. I never.
That is a conduct shocking to public decency. Yeah, well, yeah. So now we that's to the extreme.
Right.
Okay? So now we can whittle that away a little bit and make it not so extreme, and most of our I'm about to get in trouble here. Help me, Jesus.
Work here to learn.
Some of our fashion our fashion culture, even though it's been gradual, has become wanton. If a person that lived in the 60s or 70s would have gone to sleep and was to wake up 50 years later and see what's allowable. Yes.
Wardrobe malfunctions,
Well,
right?
you know, as I remember, in the
Set.
late 60s,
Late 60s, yeah.
70s,
Mm-hmm.
came out with the mini skirts,
Mm-hmm.
which to our parents and grandparents gave them a heart attack.
And the micro minis and the hot pants.
Yeah.
Hot pants.
Shorter tops.
Dun, 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 dun. Hey.
Yeah. Well, they have another name for them.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the Daisy Dukes. My God. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, and you know what? I'm not just getting on the women's fashion. The men had some questionable fashions back in those days too. Those jumpsuits that they used to wear, and yeah, them polyester. Yeah, that was right. So yeah, the John Travolta type of stuff, and so that would be the clothes. But a lot of times, the fashion of the clothes would dictate the conduct. So it wasn't necessarily the clothes, but there is an old saying: the clothes make the person, or the person make the clothes. I think it was the clothes make the person. So then, being dressed in a wanton way might cause you to act wantonly, or licentiously, or a little more frivolous, out at the discotheque. I'm.
The dress that makes you want to ask us to have a certain context, or are the thoughts there already to want that fashion? So you can exercise the thoughts in the fashion that you want to wear.
I like that. That was a good question. Is it the clothes, or was the mindset already there to purchase the clothes, and the clothes gave you liberty to act in a way that you were already thinking in the first place. You know, that is a six in one hand, half dozen other. Because I know when and just not to deviate, but you know, if I put on a tuxedo, and if, you know, don't let me have a top hat and a cane.
Ain't touching this, huh?
You know, I'm a distinguished gentleman. All that evening while I'm wearing that, you know. But because I want it to be a distinguished gentleman, and then I put on a tux that gave me liberty to be. I get you. Yes. So, is it the mindset? Then that would be the thought patterns, right? That make the conduct. So it goes back to the flesh. The dictates of the flesh are made known. Okay, the flesh said, go buy them hot pants. And you thinking, well, if I buy these hot pants, my mom gonna be hot too. But I'm gonna be hot. I'm gonna buy these hot pants. Let me try them on first. And you look at, you know what I'm saying? So it is a dictate of the flesh. And it goes a little deeper. I'm just trying not to stay on that whole extreme of the streaking deal, because I can't think of what was in somebody's mind to make them think that they could jump on a football field with, 70,000 people watching, not to mention TV, and just run around naked. I wonder what was going on there.
I think with some people, they don't dare to do that.
I'm sure, but
2
I
minutes of
don't remember
fame.
being in a place where, I don't know why this guy, no. They dared this guy to do this, and he did, He had a few too many drinks, they dared him to do it, and he did.
and so you wonder if internally, in his thought pattern, was that something that he may have considered. All he needed was license to do, whether it was the alcohol or, the other part. And we're going to get into that, because that's part of the work of the flesh too. And you'll start to see how all these sort of work together. How the flesh will work a few of these together. And so if one don't get you and the other don't get you, the flesh will put them together. And gotcha. So maybe he was already kind of thinking that, then he started partying, carousing. That one of those works of flesh is carousing. And then it was like, okay, throw caution to the wind. I'll do it. But I still can't think of what was on his mind to do. Yeah, right, and everything else, especially if you with alcohol and drugs, which are in the next group.
Well, in Southern California, where I grew up, all it was surfers and girls romping around in their spring bikinis.
That's right.
It's like, why even buy one?
Right.
Because there was nothing there.
Beach blanket bingo.
Yeah, like a teeny weeny yellow polka dot.
The bikini, yeah. Yeah, everybody wanted one of those teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikinis. Yeah, or at least see one, because of the wantonness, because of the flesh. Because the flesh wanted to display a conduct that's shocking to public decency. I like this other definition. It's spite which rejects restraint and indulges in lawless insolence. Okay. So those are some of the works of the flesh. Let's keep moving. I think we kind of understand these, right? I mean, they're all with a sexual or sensual connotation. But now we're going to get into another group. So that first group, Paul explains, mostly deal with sensuality, sexuality, this idea of, no restraint sexually. That's what the flesh dictates. This animalistic idea of I can have sex when I want, with whom I want, whenever I want, and if I really want to take it to the extreme, you know, as often as I want. Okay, in all manners of whatever you can think of, because that is the idea if you put those three together. And given, this is what I tell most people, given the situation and the circumstances, any one of us are capable of manifesting this type of behavior, because this type of behavior works in the flesh of all of us. This is part of human fallen nature. It's just that many of us have learned how to restrain it. Many of us have learned how not to entertain the thoughts of it. Many of us have learned how to keep it under arrest. Those dictates that would say, go ahead and do that. Because we've developed a stronger moral code. We've developed, whether it's our upbringing, whether it's our environment, you know, some things we were just told that now you just know better than to do that because of what you were taught, maybe, or how you were shown how a man or a gentleman or a woman or a lady should conduct themselves. Okay, so now we get into these next three. They are a little more, the lines may seem a little blurred. So I want to try to bring some clarity to the lines of these. The first one is idolatry. Idolatry. And the Greek rendering for this word is interesting. Basically, it's idolatria. Basically, it's the same word, idolatry, but it's idolatria. And it means the worship of an image, the service of an image or an idol. Image worship. Now, most of us will say, well, I don't worship idols. I don't worship, especially around Christmas time. Right? I don't worship a Christmas tree and the bulbs and all that type of thing. But the worship of an idol, can someone tell me what would be considered the worship of an idol? An idol maybe that you would think that people worship, or an image. A car, certain type of car. The red fast cars. Yeah. The blue fast one. Money, mammon, a house. Mm-hmm. They're kids.
Anything that you put before God.
Anything that you put before God. Entertainers. Yeah. Athletes. Can someone tell me what is probably the number one image of worship in the United States?
Football.
That shield, that NFL shield. That image, oh my God. They own Sunday mornings. That image. And a lot of people feel that, well, I don't worship the NFL. But the word worship is what needs to be defined. In the Old Testament, when a person would worship, what they would do is they would bring a sacrifice. In the Old Testament, the way you worshiped was by bringing a sacrifice, something that cost you. It wasn't just music and dancing and singing and going to church. No, worship in the Old Testament, you brought a sacrifice, you brought something of value, and you gave it Okay, in this case, to this idol or to this image. Huh? A loaf of bread? Well, yeah. What about? Anybody bought a sports ticket recently? Now that's the sacrifice.
Oh, yeah, what, $1,500?
Yeah. And then when you go to the stadium, you give it.
I put that in nosebleed
And
section.
they, that's that. I'm not saying that everybody who goes to a sports event on Sunday is worshiping an idol. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that there are some people who do. And that is their form of worship. And they will do whatever they have to do to get that ticket every other week. They will sell the farm and the kids to get that ticket to be there at that event. What's another one? What's another idol? An image.
Drugs and alcohol.
Oh, that's on the next one. That's on the next one. Oh, y'all gotta know this one. You know this one. Yeah, you should know it. It comes from actually a Greek god. The name of this idol or this image comes from a Greek god, and the slogan is "Just do it."
Nike.
People will sacrifice their kids' college. I'm talking about that Nike swoosh. People will sacrifice their kids' college tuition. Yes, they will. Every time a new one comes out,
Oh, yeah.
300-400, right?
Stand in line,
Depends on your shoe size.
On an average, on a good day, it's about between $250 to $500.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Long. Yeah.
Downtown Seattle, it was crazy. I mean, people were lined more than one block. I mean, it was like 2 or 3 blocks down from where the store was, and it was this unending line of humanity stretching out.
He said an unending line of humanity. but that image is a lot of people sacrifice to that image.
These days, they only get it to resell them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not so much just going down and buying a pair of tennis shoes. I mean, come on, that can't be idol worship. It can't be. It just can't be. Because after all, I do tithe my $2. Yeah. I yes.
The ladies, it's the Michael Kors shoes, handbag.
Gucci and all that.
So I think now you guys are getting my point. The world is full of images. We call them brands. The Greek calls them logos because they do speak. When you see that brand, it says something to you, and it's calling you. Come by me. And if you are prudent and wise, you save up and you can get that. But if you're sacrificing to that image, you're worshiping.
So would you say, because as you start describing that, it creates an understanding of tradition,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So is it the tradition that our family is gonna buy these tickets because we're going to this season this year, all of us?
Yeah.
Or we're setting this tradition because this is what we do.
Right.
to, as you're saying, sacrifice to worship.
Right.
And it seems though, we don't question it because it's tradition,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems okay.
Well, the drive to worship, it can be traditional or generational. Think about it. My mom went to Baptist church. She brought me to the Baptist church. I grew up, I would go to the Baptist church. My dad was a Raider fan. Hey, I'm a Raider fan. My daughters are Raider fans. And their children will be Raider fans. No, I'm teasing. But you see how that can go. You can be taught traditionally what to worship and how to worship it. If that's the way your environment was.
What happened to DJ then?
I-
He's a Pats fan.
Yeah, no, he's a Cowboy fan, and I just.
I was up.
Yes, sir.
Football season only lasts like 3 months. 4 months.
hmm
So, 4 months you're worshiping an idol. What about the rest of
I wait, whoa, 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 unnecessary roughness. My wife said that should be called on every play. Unnecessary roughness. No, I'm not saying that enjoying football for those 16 to 20 weeks is worshiping an idol. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it could lead to it though.
Football has started already.
Yeah, yeah. The spring training.
17 games starting with the August.
Yeah, starts in August. See, and we
It's
know,
already started.
and we know when it starts. Yeah, we know when it starts and when the preseason and how they change it, the players. But I'm not saying that being involved in that type of entertainment is necessarily worshiping an idol,
Right.
but it can lead to it
It's when you start sacrificing.
if you start sacrificing to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that you can save up, buy tickets, save up, and go and go to Vegas and enjoy a football game. Hint, hint. But when it is you sacrifice all you have to that, including helping the poor, including giving, to your local church. You sacrifice all that. You sacrifice some people paying bills, taking care of their families. They sacrifice all of that. Then it becomes worship. It becomes worship. Yes, ma'am.
Well, then with the sacrifice, is it only a sacrifice when it's monetary value? Or is it a sacrifice when you're focusing on that and you're not focused on anything else but consistent with it?
A sacrifice, I believe, and I'm just going out on a limb here, is an act of the heart. You know what I'm saying? So it's not really the amount of money or the time, but it is worship. Worship is an act of the heart, of the spirit, and it's who you give your spirit to. Your mind, your emotions, to. Who do you lend it to? And I believe that worship then is not only what you give tangibly, because it starts here, inwardly, and it manifests itself outwardly. I love, so I give. I desire, so I sacrifice. And this is where it comes into the deeds of the flesh or the works of the flesh. It is this desire to sacrifice to this idol, and it becomes a god. It becomes a false god, and in many cases, vices spring from it, and becomes idolatry. And people put it before the Almighty, or the sacrifices before the Almighty. And so now your heart is divided. If you had to make a choice between it and the Almighty, which would you choose? Most of us would say the Almighty. But most of us haven't been in that situation where we had to make a choice of the sacrifice. A lot, and I like what the example you said about kids. Kids can become, and have been known to become, an idol. Do I leave them to the Lord, or do I sacrifice everything to them? My time, my money, my heart, my thoughts. Or when do I make a decision to trust God for them? And that's, hey, I'm a parent of 5+, so it's a difficult sometimes decision, and you walk that fine line. Am I worshiping? Am I sacrificing to this idol called parenthood for the sake of the Almighty? Give my everything, and it sounds so good. I'm supposed to give my everything. For some people, it's their job. They think about their job 7 days a week. They're so engrossed in their job, they take their job home with them. They take their home to their job. They're always thinking about their work and their performance, to the point where it consumes them. And their job now has the potential to be an idol, something that I sacrifice for. After all, I went 12 years of school to get this job. And so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to do all I can to do my best, because I got to get that paper. Then it becomes the idol of mammon, the idol of money. I'm not going to, I'm going to move to one more, but the idol of things. How many know that you can have things? Some people think that what I need is money. I just need money. But it's not the money that you need, because the money by itself is just a piece of paper. It's what you exchange the money for that you really want or need. Those things. That's why Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. How many know that you can get things many times that don't even need money? I know people that have gotten brand new cars and houses and didn't even have money. April and I walked into a brand new house, had never been lived in, brand new, and we didn't have no money. And the people who sold us the house, So you don't need no money. We got you for 3 months. And the place that I was working for was saying, y'all don't need no money. After 3 months, we got it. We just walk right into a brand new house. No money. But we needed a house. Seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness, and these things will be added to. So a lot of people will worship and sacrifice for the money, and sometimes never really even get the things. But they have a pile of money. Have you ever seen those people just be doing all this with all their money? Making it rain with all that money.
Still living with mama.
Right. And it looks good to be like, ooh, look at all that money. Look at all those $100 bills, and it excites. So, and there are other false gods out there. You know, of course, we know about the well, I'll go ahead and say it. There have been worship to idols and false gods that have crept in the church. And sometimes in the form of, what do we call those? I can't think of the name of them now, but you know how in especially older churches that have been around 100 years, and they have certain furniture in those churches, and you just better not move it. It's been there for 50 years. Brother and sister so-and-so donated it, and it's going to stay there regardless. And the first person try to move it around, and they get excommunicated. Yeah. But there have been other ones. One of the ones that really got me, and you know, there's an argument, and I'm okay with it, was this idea of changing an idol worship into a worship of the Almighty, but its roots is in idol worship. That's what Jezebel did. A lot of people think Jezebel was wrong for the lipstick and the makeup, but what she did was she took the worship of Baal and combined it with the worship of Jehovah God, and she convinced them that it was okay. So there's a lot that goes on in the church, and I'm trying to be really, really careful. Can I give you an example?
Yes, please. Is that okay? We got your back.
Hula. Hula is, and it's cultural from Hawaii, maybe the islands, Polynesian islands, and traditionally, hula was a way of worshiping different gods, mostly those that they identified on trees or bark, or what we call tikis. And it was to tell the story of how the god of the rain and the god of the ocean and the god of the sun blessed the people. Now, we all know that the god of the rain and the god of the sun and the god of the ocean is all the same God. But that God said, "Thou shalt not make any graven images of me." He said that. One of the most celebrated idols that we have in the church is the cross. That old rugged cross. That if you touch it or move it, you going to hell. And people will literally, and they don't think that they're worshiping this idol, this cross. But in fact, some do unaware. They don't know that they are worshiping a cross or worshiping an idol, sacrificing to an idol. They don't know. Some don't. It's okay. A cross is a symbol of my faith. I'm not worshiping it. But that was one of his. That's why when I get into these conversations, especially with Jehovah's Witnesses, that's one of the main things that they'll bring up is the cross. And do you have a cross in your home? Do you have a cross in your church? That's an idol. That's an image. Do you bow down to that? Do you sacrifice to it? And that becomes a point of discussion. So you see, the works of the flesh, the dictates of the flesh desires to sacrifice to many different types of things. And we will rationalize and make it okay to sacrifice to many different types of idols and images. It used to be the TV. Just not necessarily what comes on it, just having one. And back in the old days, if you had a TV in your house, you were going to hell. Then it was the computer. If you had a computer in your house, you were going to hell. That was a tool of the devil. And then the video games. We won't even talk about worldly music. And so what happens is we actually create idols. Some of these things are not idols in and of themselves. They're not. A TV, a computer, it's not an idol. Who worships it? Some people do in different ways. So we have to be aware when our flesh cries out to put these things before the Almighty, or even before how we interact with people. Then we have to be careful to ask ourselves, are we creating an idol in and of it? So we have to be mindful of what we desire to worship or sacrifice to. Okay? I know I'm going to get a lot of emails from those of you who are football fans. I'm okay. I'm okay. I apologize a little bit. Not much, but a little bit.
When you were talking about sacrifices, you kind of became referred to as Romans 12:9. And it says, I beseech you, because I appeal to you in bed. Therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present
Your
your bodies
bodies.
a living sacrifice.
Yes. Holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service, or one translation says your reasonable act of worship. Sacrifice. Your reasonable act of worship. Submit your bodies, right, as a living sacrifice, which is your reasonable act of worship. Last one. This is the last one, and we can come back to these if you would like, because these are all grouped together. Idolatry, and the next one is sorcery. Sorcery. Mine says sorcery. Anybody have another one? Somebody have witchcraft? Witchcraft. Anybody have anything different? No? Sorcery or witchcraft? The word in the Greek is pharmakia. Where we get the word what? Pharmaceuticals. Pharmakia, the use of medicine, drugs, or spells. Pharmakia, the flesh, the dictates. Pharmakia, the use of medicine, drugs, or spells. Magic, sorcery, enchantment. Pharmakia basically means to administer drugs. Drug related sorcery, like the practice of magical arts. Yeah, I knew this was going to. Yeah. Ooh, it got quiet. Wow. Because most of us use medicine.
Yeah, you can go to the shop a couple months ago.
Yeah, right. Just got a vaccine, right?
You feel enchanted?
Yeah, right. That's it. Now, let's. We don't have the time to go deep into it, but we will next week. I'll stay a little extra longer because we started late. So now, the root of the word pharmakia means the use of medicine, drugs, or spells. Okay. Now, medicine in and of itself is not wrong, because doctors use medicine to heal, right? So then we must think something into the translation of the work of the flesh to use medicine, drugs, or spells to do what?
To heal you?
To do what?
Heal you? Or to
Self-gratification.
Or to bring you out and make you think.
I like where we going. Just keep going. We going there.
Self-gratification, is that?
Okay, yeah, that's the root of it. So in order, I think I know you're about to say something. What you about to say?
Altered states.
Altered states. But I like the altered states. But why?
To control.
To control.
If you can control how someone thinks, you can alter their state.
Okay, so that's one area of witchcraft, is to use different things to control people's states
And your senses,
and your senses.
to impact those senses, your mind, how you feel about something, how you think about something.
Okay, so is it to control others or to have some self-control?
Both and,
Both and, right?
both and.
Because if I'm dealing with, watch this. Now I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not telling you that this is what I'm teaching, but I'm making people aware of the works of the flesh. So we just taught on anxiety Sunday, right? And we taught about what kind of medical or scientific explanation of it. We talked about distress in the Bible and how each one of those can deal with anxiety. But now, if I'm suffering from anxiety and I smoke a joint, I have just altered my state. Most likely I'm no longer anxious because I'm high. Unless I drop off into what was that we make you paranoid then I'm in a bad way. Because not only am I anxious, but I'm paranoid too, and then I'm wishing I never had smoked that joint. But for some people, it works for them better than the prescribed drugs or the prescribed pharmaceuticals that psychiatrists prescribe to help with anxiety too. So what do? Either we deal with it in a natural way, or we deal with it in a spiritual way, or we try to deal with it both ways or all ways. The main thing, I just want to get rid of this anxiety. I want to alter this mood that's causing me panic attacks and phobias and all of those things. I just want some relief from it. What'd you say? A quick fix. Yeah, because once you're no longer high, or if you're taking the pharmaceutical or the prescribed medicine from the doctors, once it gets in your system, if you stop taking it, you're in a bad way. Yeah, you're in a bad. The doctors have to slowly but surely wean you off of it, and then you have to replace that with some therapy or some other tools that you can use naturally. Okay, so that's why I'm not totally against, drugs that help with mental illness. But if you're going to take them as prescribed and do the therapy, do the work, because it's all temporary. If you were to stop taking them, and if you haven't done the therapeutic work, then your state would be worse than it was at first.
And they also build up in your system and you plateau out and either need something
Stronger.
and still haven't done the work and you're
Right.
vicious cycle.
Right. And in the work, in the therapy, it should include the Word of God. For the Word of God is quick and powerful and sharp. And it goes deep into your being. And it administers healing also. So, I mean, we can get into the ideas of the mind, but just from a surface idea, the work of the flesh, and most of the time, when you look at the works of the flesh, you want to offset them with the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit are designed to help us to interact with people in a God way, in a God kind of way. Help us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Help us to show the love of God. The fruit of the Spirit is the way that those fruit are the way we behave or should behave toward one another. Love, joy, kindness, long-suffering, all of those things toward one another. Well, when it comes to the work of the flesh, it is also the work of the flesh are designed to I won't say help us, incite us on how to deal with people in a negative way. So when we look at pharmakia, or the practice of the magical arts, or the practice of administering drugs or opiates or mood altering things to negatively affect people, whether it's to control them, to manipulate them, to get them to think how you want them to think, or to feel how you want them to feel. One of the most powerful forms of sorcery and witchcraft are your words. Right. If I speak a thing enough to you, I can make you believe it. That happened to who?
That's what happens to children.
Yes, to children, yeah. Sometimes, well, what are spells? Aren't they words? Aren't they words? And their words, a lot of times, they're just words spoken in the atmosphere. They're not really spoken to the person. They're spoken in the atmosphere. Person is nowhere around. And a spell can be spoken in the atmosphere to affect another person negatively. That's one of the most powerful forms of pharmakia. Is your words. That's why we have to be careful how we talk about people, what we say about people. Because sometimes we're cursing people and we don't even realize we're casting out these negative things about people, and it's traveling in the atmosphere, and we've said it. And you know what? Flesh will hang you up. Flesh will talk to you. Flesh will talk to your mind, and you'll say that about the person. Don't even. Amen.
Amen.
Amen, light bulb. And the flesh will say, yeah, go on, say that. You know it's true. The truth hurts. I'm just trying to be 100. Yeah, like a TI is. and those words now become a form of witchcraft or variance, emulations, spells, hexes, curses. Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. What? And it could go deeper. Voodoo, hoodoo.
Black magic too.
That right, black magic. All of those things. I mean, when you get into it, I'm gonna close it here. I tell you, this is okay. I'm gonna close this because this is something I want to use as some self-disclosure, and probably don't want this all out in the airways. Good night, everyone.